So I'm going to start the intro and then I'm just going to hand it off to you.
All right.
It's best in your voice.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the latest episode of Authenticated with your host, Kate McLeod. I am intrigued by people. People watching, I love. People learning, that's where I'm insatiably curious. I'm interested in the why and how of the creative mind's pattern of thinking, the subtext to the creative thinker, or in its more conscious and malleable form, the creative conscious. Because when you are so clear on yourself via the triad of consciousnesses, then you become reflective to others. Meeting yourself is an infectious practice because what feels good is infectious and something I think we could all use a good dose of. So join me in conversations with a diverse arsenal of creative thinkers, from artists to entrepreneurs to serial thinkers ready to optimize their creative conscious. With me, self-made and self-proclaimed creative entrepreneur. Sounds hot, right? Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Authenticated with your host, me, Kate McLeod. I'm here with JxJury, who is not only a very dear friend, but an absolute brilliant creative director and a very, very talented musician. It's you.
Hey, thank you.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and your verbiage.
Yeah. JxJury. I am from Southern California, a small group of cities called the IE.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud. I rep my 909 with all the pride. Moved to the Northwest. I had a dream as a kid that I wanted to work at the Nike World headquarters. And the reason I had that dream was because I say this to everybody, since I was little, there was like three things that just inspired every single detail of my life. And that's music, basketball, fashion, period. And so I had the opportunity to go to the headquarters, the Nike headquarters when I was a kid with my uncle, and my life just changed. And exposure was everything. There's a lot of people back home that you know, are kind of doing a lot of the same things. And I think being exposed to that at such a young age is just like, was really pivotal in my growth really early. But anyways, yeah, music, basketball, fashion, those were just the things. And so I just pretty much, without really knowing, was naturally just putting myself in the environments that kept me inspired.
Yeah.
You know, and then the older I got, the more I realized, oh, I can make a career out of this. You know what I mean? Or I can go to school for this. I can go play college ball. I can make music on my own. Like when I first discovered how to make music at my house because I didn't have the money to do it, right? So there's just like my whole journey from, you know, being a kid to today has literally been based on those three things.
Yeah.
And so I think I've always been a living embodiment of like the multi-hyphenate. I love what I did in the corporate world when I was working in the apparel and fashion product. But I've always been a musician. I've always been an artist. And I was always an athlete. You know, I did all the things. I was never one of them. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, that, you know, the saying, you know, a kid in the candy shop now has been rewritten in my brain to, no, a kid at the Nike headquarters.
Yeah, it felt like the candy shop. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It definitely did. You think about all the shoes and things you grow up seeing and in the, I don't know if you're familiar with like the Mars Blackman commercials when Michael Jordan, you know, Mike's got to be the shoes when Spike Lee was in the commercials and stuff. Like that stuff just used to have me so lit up. And I just remember the older I got, I was like, I want to do that and create those stories myself. And it's pretty much what I went on to do.
Wait, that's such beautiful intuition. And also to know that you were going to follow it. You know, that to me is like gut first, where it's like, no, I love this stuff.
Yeah.
These are just part of my identity. I'll figure out how to make it work later.
Oh my God. Yo, I was the most delusional kid. I really was. Like, you couldn't tell me. I remember I'll never forget this story. I was in 7th grade and I was hooping. I started taking ball real serious.
Yeah.
Doing travel ball, AAU circuit and everything. And I remember telling my classmates, I was like, you know, because I knew what high school I was going to go to. I was like, I'm going to go and play varsity. I'm going to play varsity more. Freshman year, first year. Everybody's like, no, you're not. Right. And I was delusional about it, though. I just knew. And I put the work in, but I just knew I had this gut feeling that I wanted this, so I was going to go do it. Lo and behold, I did it. And I was a freshman on varsity and was in the newspaper literally at my first game. I manifested it because I was so delusional about it, and I just believed it to my core. Same thing with moving to Oregon right out of school. And working at Nike, you know, it happened because I just went and did it. I didn't have the blueprint. I had to go create the blueprint, right? But I think when you're delusional, you just have that belief in yourself. then, literally anything is possible.
Well, it's also like living in the house is what's going to happen. That's a non-negotiable. And the blueprint's none of your business.
Right.
If you want to make an analogy like that, but I love that.
Yeah.
I call it an intendi delulu, the intentional delusion.
I've always, yep, exactly.
Yep. You have to be though.
Yep.
Because otherwise, what are you going to do? Get something that seems easy to reach? That doesn't sound like any expansion to me or like any fun or growth.
Yeah, no, yeah. And it's like I said, I wasn't even the mindset of like intentionally trying to like grow at the time. I was just, I wanted to be challenged, but I didn't realize that that's what I wanted. I loved the challenge, you know what I mean? Or I loved the feat of accomplishing something that maybe took a long time to get to, right? There was like a compound of all of these efforts, whether it's a big project and this is why I loved making product. It took 2 years to like come up with a concept, a design, and then have it, go through all of the end-to-end process to get it to the consumer. You know what I mean? I loved that process.
Yeah.
As a kid, I loved going to, our first practice, and we're doing all our conditioning and all of that and prepping for months before our first game, but then we go out there and execute. And you win. Music's the same way. When I build an album, I'm literally, because I think the way that I think, I'm looking at the creative direction, the artwork, how's this going to show up on stage, all those things up front. And then I start piecing it together, from the songwriting to the recording. I do all the engineering as well. So when I'm engineering and then mastering everything, right, that's a lot of work.
That is.
Right? But the output of it is, I've just realized that comes from how I grew up, just wanting that challenge, wanting to be able to craft something, in its entirety like that. So there's some intentional delulu in there for sure.
Intendi delulu. You said something because I think the way I think. But to me, I'm also hearing synonymously with that, you feel the way you feel. So if you operate through life with this like beautiful delusion and you're like, yeah, this is just going to happen. But then you go into places like Nike, which have been established for a long time. And I don't know much about them, but I would know outside of, what the average person does. But it's like, I would assume that just like in any other massive industry or business or company, there is a formula there. So that awareness that has to come when you're like, no, I feel these things. So with that being said, you feeling the way you feel and you thinking the way you think, do those ever hinder the other or clash?
They can, because I think if you go based on your gut feeling is usually right. But a lot of times your thoughts they're created by maybe an external factor or a pressure. I'll give you an example. When I first started at Nike, deep down, I knew what it was I wanted to do. I knew what drove me. And that was really being myself in the space and bringing what I knew I could bring. I was a kid who hooped. I loved fashion. I did music. I was already all the things that every corporation basically wants to have in their corner when they're trying to cater to people who look like me. And that's what got me there. And then you start trying to climb the ladder and play the game. You start, quote unquote, drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, but it's more like these leaders have kind of said, oh, you have to do it certain ways to be successful here. If you want to move on to this next role, you have to check these boxes, right? And not to say that certain boxes don't need to be checked, but how you do it definitely can hinder how far you go or even just how creative you can stay. And so I think that's where I started to feel that rub, was when I was inherently like, I felt like I wanted to do things a certain way because I felt like it was the right thing for the culture, for the consumer. I knew the consumer like the back of my head.
Yeah.
Well,
because it was
I
the
knew
back of your hand.
It literally, I am him. And it basically took me away from doing it the way that I would have wanted to, and felt like I had to do it this way, because if I do it this way, leadership will recognize it, or, we'll get these sales numbers, but it's not always about the numbers, it's about doing it the right way. And so, I think the feeling and the thought, definitely, I felt that. But I think over time, as I've kind of grown, I mean, I did that career for 10 years, and now, I'm a freelance creative director. And I think now and also just being the artist that I am, I now have a very good sense for marrying gut feeling and thought that allows me to do it how I do it now and how I move. But that took a lot of time. You got to go through those trials and tribulations of really trying to quote unquote play the game, right? And learn, or kind of earn your stripes and learn the way. But I learned very quickly and very early that if I don't do it my way, it's one, it's not going to be fulfilling. 2, it's not going to be the right thing for the marketplace, right? And then 3, it just like, I'm going to hit a ceiling fast, and it's not going to feel good. And that's kind of what happened. But definitely flipped that script, and I think was able to leave a bit of a legacy on as I departed from there. But yeah, I think that's a great question.
Well, I because you're preaching to the choir, right? Like I was such a delusional child as well. It's such a beautiful thing that you have to keep with you, and especially when you go into these big companies that can help you have a bigger launching point, learn more about the tricks of the trade and stuff. But if you were looking backwards, what are the 3 things that you would say to someone who needs to believe their gut, needs to actualize themselves and find their highest point by following their gut and making up their own rules and going into being a freelance creative director? Backwards, what are the 3 things that you think you did that maintained that for you between the conversation of I feel what I feel and I know what I know?
You kind of have to know yourself to be able to be yourself, right? It's a lot of what you're going to start building in this venture we're going to talk about in a second. I think a lot of it was recognizing, who I was and what I wanted to be about that allowed me to unlock the things that I unlocked. Being authentically yourself. You are the vessel. There's a reason why, yes, anyone can go and check boxes on a resume, but there is an X factor in everybody that allows them to do it differently than everybody else. And I think as I reflect, I've seen a lot of people do what I did, but didn't go as far as I went because they were trying to do it the way the paper said. And I did it when I was able to quickly learn, that's not going to get me there, right? Yeah. I was then able to go on a launch pad because I had that authentic approach to it that was just so different. No one else could do it the way that I did it, right? So I think knowing yourself and being incredibly authentic and bringing your unique self to that role, regardless of what that role is. Doesn't matter if you're a designer, doesn't matter if you're a product manager, a developer, you work in tech, it doesn't matter what you do it how only you can do it, right? So that's a big one. I think the other thing too is you definitely have to be a sponge in a sense too, because I think a part of knowing yourself is also learning what you don't like. Right. And I think being a sponge, though that process sometimes feels like maybe you want to jump in and make an impact immediately. Right. But you don't always know the ropes. Right. So you do have to step in and be open-minded to being a sponge. And I think what really helped me be successful with that was a lot of the collaborators that I worked with, especially early on. I remember my first, what's a good example? My first meeting with, let's talk about Kobe. My first meeting with Kobe. So he was always known as R.I.P. to GOAT. His birthday was just the other day. But he was, first and foremost, out of all the people I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot of people, he was maybe the one person that I saw the aura glowing around him when he walked in the room, and I was like, oh, that's Kobe. That's crazy. And the meeting was to talk about his business on all fronts, but I was the apparel lead. So I was the one basically taking him through the apparel collection that we had that season, and we had updates and designs and things we had to work through. And being a sponge really helped me in a situation with someone like him, because I was able to sit and instead of being like, oh, I'm the expert in this, I earned my way here, right? Yeah. I'm me. No one can do it like me, right? I know I just said that point, but there's also the balance of knowing there's a lot of experience in dealing with a personality like him. He was he was kind of known as a hard guy to work with in terms of just he was very firm. He knew what he wanted. He'll rip you apart, just like you might know him on the court, right? The Mamba mentality. He'll rip you apart in that business meeting if you don't have your P's and Q's on point. Yeah. And so I just took that opportunity to kind of sit back and let even like a basketball game, let the game come to you. And I just sat and observed. I recognized what he was upset about that day, or what parts of the business weren't working for him in his mind and what was kind of ticking him off. And that allowed me to, zero in and be like, go into my part of that meeting knowing, okay, maybe we should stay away from this topic, lean into this topic. These are the things that are going to help this meeting be successful, right? And I did that with I would listen to the VPs in the room. I'd listen to, everyone who's technically on paper higher than I, because I was young. I was impressionable. I wanted to learn. But I also wanted to learn for the sake of being able to take the things from all of those individuals that I thought worked and then do it my way. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people could practice the sponge thing and the authenticity thing and marrying those two things. And I think sometimes they have a hard time with doing either of them.
I think that the metaphor of the sponge, people usually think it means to take things in, but what it also means is to release things too.
Totally. That's huge. That's huge. Yes.
A lot of what we're doing in Me3 together, especially visually to accomplish, is one of the big pillars is I'm so clear on myself that you can see yourself in me. And it sounds like that's kind of what Kobe's doing too, because that was one of the first people to let other people know that looked like him and wanted to do what he wanted to do, that they could be there too, because he was that first like person in that position. And so for him to come in and for you to say, I'm just going to be quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what that is.
Exactly. So that was just like the first, I have so many examples, but like that helped me a ton. That's the only point number 2. Honestly, this third one might be the most cliche one ever. But truthfully, this is why I was able to do what I think I've done every day in my life, and that's just believing that I could. You know what I mean? There are a lot of roles that require these prerequisites for you to get there. You had to have done this for 2 years and then have this experience for 5 years. And the list goes on. It doesn't matter what role in the world, there is a laundry list of you need to have these things. And to a degree, yes, you need to know how to do it for sure. But do not let that deter you from going after the thing. Just because you don't have 5 years of experience in that thing, you might have 2, but you might be the best at it. Yeah. And they don't know that. And you have to show them that. And the only way you show them that is if you believe it. And you have to believe it. I stepped into spaces that other people would think I didn't belong there, but I felt like I did. I felt like I did belong there. And I acted like it. You know what I mean? And I think that X factor in itself will take you a very long way.
It will. That pattern of disqualification that we have, I feel like we are starting to steer away from, which is really good because we're more interested in the person that we're talking to and our belief in them and not so much the system that they're a part of.
Right.
We need to go back to calibrate to 0 so we can start to trust 1, then 2. And, you know, I think that's why consulting has popped off so much recently as much as it has, because that's what we're trusting.
100%.
One of my friends is an agent at one of the top agencies. And I was talking to him and I said, I'm not sure what agency I kind of want to start talking to rep me for acting or for writing. And he mentioned one and I was like, oh my God, they would never rep me. My resume doesn't have what it needs to. And then he goes, let them talk to you for 10 minutes. Fuck your resume.
You disqualified yourself right out the gate.
Right out the gate. Yep. And it's like, you're right. Why don't I just figure out instead to get into spaces where those people are going to be and then they meet me and then they're like, oh, wait, I'm interested. Because we're never going to be represented accurately by like, oh, well, here's my degree. Yeah. Here's my qualification that someone else vetted. So you believe that is like part of this made up system. Let's just make up a different thing now. Yeah.
And that's not to be confused with like, and there's a lot of people out there that just have this like feeling of entitlement, right? And this is huge. We run into this. My wife and I talk about this all the time. Entitlement will ruin every bit of progress.
It will.
It will. You got to believe in yourself, but you also got to you got to earn those stripes. And you got to show how you did that. You got to be able to present yourself in a way that shows you are not only fully capable for the job, but fully capable for the long term. Yeah. You know? And so, that's another thing. But yeah, the disqualification thing that you just mentioned, I don't know how many clients, how many people I have worked with in my time that do that, not even knowing.
Not even knowing.
And I definitely did it to early. I did. But it took me, the 3 things we just talked about, you know, that's what allowed me to be able to step into the spaces the way that I do and not do that. Yeah.
They're pillars that people need. You have to decide what it means to you to be qualified and then show up as that person. I was never looking for a moment to pop off. I was looking for a lifetime to pop off. Yeah. And that's what I'm doing now. And so it's not like I want to just be a little flash in the pan. It's like I am set up, which is why, and some people think it's a little bit over the top, and that's totally fine. But before I launch a business, I have lawyers involved. I have a creative director. I have a stylist. I have a curriculum consultant. I have a whole team. Because what I'm talking about requires a whole team. And what we're all talking about requires a team.
100%.
So it has to be set in place. You can't just decide I'm going to do this and then boom. I mean, you can in theory, but the thoughtfulness has to be there.
For sure.
And I think that's where qualification comes in. It's like, well, how thoughtful were you in deciding that this is happening? Yeah. But in relative terms to yourself.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Nail on the head.
Yeah. Do you ever, I'm just curious, with that gut feeling and like who you are as an artist, are there ever moments where you feel not you and then you have to tap back into yourself? And if so, how do you do it?
Yeah, definitely. I think every artist can relate to this here, but like, I mean, the landscape has changed. Everybody's got to be a content creator in order to be an artist today. You know, unless you got a massive label or something backing you. I'm independent. So it's kind of like, it just comes with the territory. And I think it's really easy to get caught up in feeling like you, again, have to do things a certain way. Trends, this, that, and the third, right? And very quickly, I have seen artists who are, you know, they're maybe known for being really good at a specific thing, but they're doing the dances and the things that were trending, and it completely takes them out of their wheelhouse. So I've struggled. Yeah, I think everybody to a degree struggled with that. But then you come back to the point of you have to make it you. Nothing's going to work if it's not authentically you. Whether it's my content, my wife's content, we've seen so much like success. It's always the times when you're just being yourself. It doesn't matter how or what, but if you are authentically you, people will see it. When you're not, people also see that.
Correct.
You know, and that's you don't want to be on that side of the fence, because let's just say you go super viral on something that's just super unauthentic. You're not going to keep up with that.
No.
Right? You're going to fall to the wayside because it wasn't you.
The expectation's not aligned.
That's not sustainable. Yeah, so I've battled with that a little bit. I also think when it comes to just making music in today's time, here's where I think I'm really good at it is I make the music that I love. I make the music that I want to listen to or that I wish was out there. And so there are a lot of music, especially in hip hop, and you know, I do a lot of hip hop. In that world, there is a lot of oversaturation in the same type of sound. I've had a lot of people that I've worked with or been around that happen to be in that sound or have reached out to me and worked together and are that sound. And I would be lying if I didn't, you know, if I had someone reach out to me and they had a massive following and they wanted to collaborate on something, at a time I probably would have thought about it, I'm like, it'd be good though. But I'm telling you, my 10 years working and going through that like transition of like, I am going to be me has now made me the kind of artist that would never work with something that doesn't match my brand. If it's off brand, it's not happening. Period. And I don't care if it's going to hinder or means it's going to take longer. I feel so much more excited about the work when it's on brand for what I do, what I believe in. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I have probably countless examples of times that I've turned people down because of that. You know, I just and now it's like it is what it is. You know, it's no shade at all. No. You know, but it's not like I don't necessarily fuck with you. It's just I can't hinder my brand, and my brand is the most important thing to me. And I think the reason why I get to work with the people that I love to work with is because I stay on brand for me. You know what I mean?
And you know yourself well enough to know, no, this is what's authentic to me. This is how I move forward. Because the moment you take one step back or the moment that you do one thing that's not in line with you, that knocks you pretty far back. And it also takes you out of the pattern of knowing your brand is, knowing how it comes out, and knowing what feels good to you. It's too dire of a thing. You can't be out of alignment.
Facts.
My therapist says it's either a fuck yes or a fuck no.
Shout out your therapist. I like that quote. I wholeheartedly believe, and I think I create that way, and your best work is going to happen.
It is.
When you create that way. Because if you're misaligned in any way, shape, or form, I'm a firm believer that I'm not going to create the best possible thing. It might feel forced. It might feel, there's definitely going to be something off. You know that flow state when whether you're writing or whatever it is you're working on, right? When you get in that flow state, you got to protect that.
You do.
And the only way to get there is authentically. And the only way to stay there is authentically. The minute you allow that to waver, it throws off something beautiful. It's one of my favorite places to be. You know, I lose track of time. Might be 5-6 hours. Next thing I know, I've gone 12 hours. I haven't eaten anything. And I didn't even know because I'm just like in the zone. I think it's either a fuck yes or a fuck no. And I think I've made the words fuck no like I say it a lot because I only want to protect what inspires me. That's what I want to work on. Yeah. And the same thing now when I'm working with clients, I'm only working on the things. That's the beautiful thing about now not being in the corporate spaces. Because I'm consulting, I get to choose who I work with now, so there's a lot of, now I get to say fuck yes a lot because I'm choosing who, you know, whether they're coming to me or vice versa, but it's like, I get to choose now, and I'm only choosing the fuck yeses. That's what's going to beget more fuck yeses. Authenticity begets more authenticity. What we do as artists is inherently incredibly expensive emotionally. It costs us a lot to create. That's a fact. It is. And to like put ourselves out there, it's very expensive. What's also expensive is compromise. And I don't really need to add more funds on top of what it is that I'm already doing. That's why you and I are similar humans in the way that we stay in line with who we are, what we're making. It's already costs what it costs. Exactly. You know, and then it's going to get more and more as we grow in our expansion as artists because that's what comes with the territory. So compromise just can't even be in that. Exactly. And that's why you have to be fierce about it. So fierce. So fierce. Yeah. And I think when we first met, I could read that in you, and I think you could read that in me. I think that's why this, you know, the collaboration and the partnership works. And I would prefer that anybody I ever work with was that way. You know what I mean? Fierce about what they believed in and what they wanted. Yeah. One of my least favorite things, I swear to you, this like, we just did a What Grinds Your Gears segment, this would be my thing. I cannot stand. Why are you laughing? I'm going to say it.
Because I know what you're going to say. I think. Go do it.
I cannot stand when someone learns that I do music and I see that, a friend introduces me to another friend, like, oh, this is Jury. He's an artist. And the person goes, oh, dang, you make music. We should collaborate. I'm like, I don't know you. I've never heard your music. You never heard my music. Uh-huh. How do we even know that this is worth either of our time? To me, someone like that is, they're basically like, it's kind of like they're just throwing out, shooting every direction, right? And they're not aiming to, they don't really have like an aim towards what they're building with their creative or their music in that case. But it just bothers me because again, going back to like protecting my brand, my sound, what I believe in, when I work with people, they believe in me just as much as I believe in them. And that's why the magic happens.
Yeah.
But if you're just willy-nilly working with anybody, that's why there's a lot of lame music out there, because there's no true intentionality in so much of it.
You said it.
You know what I mean?
You took the word.
There is no intentionality in any of it. And so that would be my segment. I can go on for another hour just on that.
I agree with you because I understand that. It's like when someone's like, oh, you should put me in one of your movies, or, oh, we should write together. And I'm like, if you are that unintentional with yourself, I need you to put all that energy back into yourself.
Exactly.
You can't be that unintentional.
Yeah.
That makes your art moot. Like, I'm bored.
Exactly. It just shows that you don't have a vision for your work and your art, because if you did, then you maybe wouldn't be reaching out to me or bringing that up to me, right? We don't know each other. Mm-mm. We haven't seen each other's work. So anyways, and that's not to say I don't like to, I love collaborating.
Of course.
That's where some of the best ideas come from collaborating, but it has to be intentional.
This is the thing. You boil a pot of spaghetti. I know this is like the age-old time analogy, but it's like you boil a pot of spaghetti. You don't take the entire pot and throw it against the wall to see if they all stick. And even if you do, only some are going to stick, but they're not even going to stick that well. You take one and you throw it and it sticks. Mm-hmm. It sticks well. You have to be intentional. And when we all first met, I knew it's like you have a hunch and you have the investigation. I had the hunch of like, I fuck with these people. Like I really like you guys. And then we had a 3-hour brunch and then it's like, okay, now here starts the investigation. And that's what evolved the whole friendship and everything. But something you said to me that stuck with me was, because I said, how do you do creative direction, but it not look all the same? And then you said, my work will never look like my lens on your work. You said it's not going to look like the Jury version of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you pulled that from that conversation, because it's just how I work. That's just my process. I feel like it really boils down to me just helping your ideas come to life visually, helping your story be told to your consumer in the way they need to be connected to it. And I'm just really good at connecting those dots. I'm a dot connector. I'm an artist, yes, but my job as a creative director isn't to, now if I'm creative directing like my own shit, right? That's different. There maybe is a language or something you see all the time, right?
That's your brand.
But if I'm helping you with your brand, we are creating your brand, telling your story, creating your visual. Mm-hmm. I'm just the one helping connect the dots, because I do that really well.
You do.
Right? And so that's my goal, is to make sure those dots get connected and you feel really pumped about it. Is there some jury element to it? Sure, the magic is in the collaboration, but in order for the collaboration to work, it has to be authentically you, for that whole brand to come to life the way it needs to be.
If you could name that language, what is that language of seeing someone else?
I think that's a great question. I don't know if I have,
because you do it really well.
But I do. It's just, I just do it. I think it comes from, to be honest, 10 years doing this work. What I realized is this was my skill set. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of work out there that can sometimes almost feel like a copy paste, because there isn't necessarily the front end work, which is, who am I working with? And what is our end goal? We need to understand those two things.
Yeah.
There isn't some, this is how it happens. This is how it works. Here's the formula.
No.
It's, who am I working with? And then what is the end goal? So in this case, I'm working with Kate, and the end goal is me three, and delivering it to, we know the size of the audience we want it to be. We know that, there's a goal. We know what it is. Once that's established, and I know Kate really well, and I know that goal really well, and we are aligned on that, then we can figure out the how we get there. But if you start with the how immediately, you don't have That's how so many people, I see a lot of collaborations out there that, and this is like coming from like music or fashion. There are so many collabs out there that just don't make sense. They don't hit. They don't land well.
Yeah.
They're a flop, right? And that happens because they didn't focus on the who and the end goal and make sure that those were so strong and aligned on. They just went straight to putting the splash, like you said, the splash. Like, oh, we're bringing in this random artist who, you know, maybe their skill set is pastels. And so they just take a random, I don't know, Nike shoe and throw pastels on it. And that's lazy because you can tell the story. There's a reason why you're bringing them here. You didn't bring them here just to throw pastels. You believe more in what they do, what their vision is. They have to understand you. You have to understand them. And that's just how I approach it. So I don't know what the name for that is other than just, you know, really being so keen on authentic storytelling.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just that.
Maybe it is that. It's a language that you speak that I've just tried to understand over the past couple months as we've been developing Me3, because my gift is being able to see other people. And I know that comes from being young Kate, so desperately wanting everyone to see her. And I feel like you gave me the gift that I give other people, you know?
Yeah. I think I do what you do just differently.
Correct.
I do see other people. That's the reason why the storytelling can come through so clean, so elegantly, is and I'm helping you see things that maybe you see it one way and I see it another, but we both identify that that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
And so then that takes that into like a double entendre of rat holes that just like, oh my God, look at all the ways we can take. It's when I world build, I get to do, the only way to do that authentically is for me to be able to see you. And that's why I said it starts with who's the partner or the collaborator first, and we have to understand each other. The other stuff it's not going to cut through or be as impactful as it could be.
No, because it can't just be out of convenience. The why has to be there, and you have to believe in that person, because otherwise it's not going to translate. It's not going to matter. And you want to treat every single client the same with equal amount of clout, because if you don't, then you're not going to come through as your best self.
Right.
You're not going to be super passionate. I mean, maybe you are. If I'm like, hey, I'm going to develop this pencil, you want in, you know?
I'm a digital guy nowadays. I don't really use the pencils, you know?
You know, but you have to believe in the concept and you have to believe in the person. But I think that also collaborations are huge compliments to artists. Working with each other, a very big compliment in and of itself, and something I've never really dealt with. But as you, me, and Kayla have been working together, I've never worked with friends like that.
It's the best.
It's the best.
Yo, Kate, it is the best. I have a story for you.
I'm ready.
Okay. And this is where I realized this is the only way I want to work going forward. There was a time, so when I was in Nike basketball, I had a team, I had a squad. They know who they are. I don't need to tell them. But I had a couple of designers that were just not only so good at what they did, apparel designer, graphic designer, so good at what they did, but they also had someone like me who was good at what I did. And we all respected each other equally, what we all brought to the table. So then there was this beautiful crossover of I'm leaning into design, they're leaning into the business. We're all like, because we all now finishing each other's sentences, we all get it. We walk into the room, who we working with today? It's Kyrie, okay, boom. Who is it today? Okay, it's LeBron, okay, boom. And we would show up to these guys like this, right? So then I leave that job and I go get like I get promoted, I get these really glamorous titles and things, and I'm working on Drake's business, right? And it was just and I'm working with talented people. So talented, but I didn't have the same like camaraderie, or it was just different. Like there was just a different chemistry, and chemistry to me is the thing that sets everything ablaze. That's the thing, that's the magic. And so I'm always just searching for that chemistry everywhere I go. And now as I reflect, I'm like, we had this chemistry and it's funny because every single person, even today, like the company just went through like this massive reorg. I'm still talking to a lot of people that are there and they're just like, man, that was a time. Because when you find that chemistry, you got to hold on to it, you know? And so now I'm like, I think that's the beautiful thing about what I do now. Because I'm choosing who I want to work with, I'm looking for that chemistry because that's what's going to make it pop. That's the other reason why I don't want to work with an artist that just meets me. I'm like, we don't have any chemistry. I don't know you. I don't know, that is the magic. So anyways, working with your friends is the best.
It is the best.
If the chemistry is there, and obviously assuming the talent and the skill level is there, right?
You can't work with all your friends.
You can't work with all. Got a couple friends, y'all. Can't work. I love you to death, but we can't do it, bro.
I know what you mean. It is magic. It's its own magic. And I feel on the same wavelength, but it's like every time, I'm ready and I think to myself, Kate, maybe you should have notes. Maybe you should have more notes. But then you show me something. I'm like, that's it.
That's it.
That's it. You need that chemistry in order to move forward.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that. One of my final questions for you. I can't believe how fast this has gone.
This is the final question?
Yeah, I know. We're like, it's crazy. So your approach to other people. So like for me, 3, you approach me and Kate is the client. Kate is the subject. It's Kate's IP. It's her brain. You are going to approach it as yourself and you're going to amplify her and make it more of yourself. That is part of your artistry. It is an extension of your artistry. Another extension of your artistry is your own music and your own brand. Yeah. So what do you learn about your brand and yourself when you apply yourself almost as a lens to other people for them to see themselves?
Yeah, it's so fun because I've created a business where I kind of do whatever the fuck I want. Yeah. And part of that is helping Kate and me 3 elevate to be this brand. I get to do, and just for context for everyone, from the creative direction, the storytelling, and the photo shoot concept we're doing, the video concept we're doing, I'm producing the music, right? All of these things. These are all things I just love to do, right? So to me, it's an opportunity to flex. I know you're coming to me for a very specific reason. You appreciate my work and how I show up.
And your taste level.
My taste level. And I think the taste level thing is really the thing that separates working with one person versus the other. My way of like showing up to your space, I get to work with someone who already appreciates my taste, already appreciates what I do. And now I'm trying to channel something from you that oftentimes it's probably not going to be the same exact thing that my brain is thinking, which is great because then I get to try to translate that. Yeah. And it creates something new. And so when it comes to music or it comes to just like my art as a creative, to me, I just feel like it's being a sponge again. I'm like, oh, there's just the way you think about this. Oh, I wonder maybe if I thought about my album rollout the way we're about to do this, I get to do this with all the clients I work with. It's just like adding layers and layers and layers to who I am as a creative, but it's still me. You know what I mean? I'm still doing it how Jury would do it, but now I have these like additional sound bites and like, it's like literally, it's like if I was to create a mood board for what my next project, and I know what it's going to be about and I know the end goal. It's like having I approach it like this. I get a little bit of what I loved from working with Kate and building me 3. That part is part of this mood board. And then this project is part of the mood. And then next thing you know, I have these things that are just added to my skill set or the way I think. Maybe I had to go work with a tool that I wasn't used to working with that just sharpened that, you know what I mean? It's iron sharpens iron. It's all it is. So I love it because I'm choosing who I get to work with. Now I get to learn from other people as well. And you just get better with time. So I think in a roundabout way, it's like selfishly, I'm working with all these people just to make my stuff sound better.
You said iron sharpens iron. I feel that way. I don't want to consult someone who's not going to feed me artistically.
1,000%.
Because I don't want to play paint by colors with you. I want to feed you the way you feed me. I want it to be a live, active thing. We talk so much about that. In Me 3, it's a huge pillar. Being active, the choice of being active. Is this of value to me? Do I like this today? What works best for me today? Yep. It comes with realigning your entire definition of what selfish means, because everyone thinks that selfish is just this inherently bad thing, and it's just not. Those are just rules and constructs that society decided to give it so that people would work for other people better.
Preach.
It's not how we work and operate at our best frequencies as humans, especially creative humans.
What's crazy is that in all the work we're doing together, I'm being selfish in all of it. You don't see it that way, though.
No, I don't.
It is manufactured to be that way. That's how I approach it. But I'm doing it for me. It inspires me. It fulfills me. I wouldn't be doing it if it didn't fulfill me. So that's selfish point number 1, right? But then how I show up and craft everything that we do, I'm going to do it in a way that fulfills me. And if we go down a rabbit hole that it doesn't, I know that maybe that's just not the project for me.
Because there's nothing else that is going to inspire you as much as you are going to inspire you. We're not that emotionally connected to other people, with the exception of your partner. Your partner inspires you. You know, like your best friend in your whole life inspires you. But outside of that, it's you. But the same thing is true in like any great relationship. You inspire each other, you feed each other, you come from each other, you go for each other. Like it's its own living organism.
Nail on the head. Nail on the head. I couldn't agree more.
I'm really excited for this launch and for your music to play. The first song I ever heard of yours became an immediate dance party, and I couldn't even ask who it was until I was done hearing it. Like it was, I felt it. We've talked about this when I messaged you, I voice memoed you one day and I was like, hey, I just need you to know this. I'm not sure why it's relevant. I just have a feeling that it is. So when I listen to music, I actually visualize it. It's usually in choreography. It's usually location specific, and I just need you to know that. And then you said, yeah, I get that more than anything.
Yeah.
We're in the right frequency. This is when it is supported to be selfish, because what I'm doing is selfish too. But it's like, from all of us doing this together, we're going to make something that speaks to humans, because we're all speaking to ourselves that speak to each other.
Yes. That's a lot of bars. Y'all are getting a lot of bars today.
I want to hear them. A
lot of bars today. I remember when you told me about that song though, and I'm glad you feel that way, because the music we do for this is what's so beautiful about it is, again, I'm gonna do it, you know, how JxJury would do it.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be so authentically Kate. You know what I'm saying? And that, I think, is what's so dope about it. Everybody I ever work with, that's it. That's the thing that they all are so proud and thankful for, is it sounds like them. And the world we're building for Me 3, it looks like you, feels like you, sounds like you. It's all of those things. And so I can't wait for people to see it. It's going to be fire.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. And for people who want to reach out to you, where can they find you? Where can everyone follow you?
Follow me on Instagram, J_JURY. All music streaming platforms, JxJury, JxJury. And shoot me a DM if you want to rap. But don't ask for a collaboration if I don't know you.
You heard it here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was dope.
We're going to do it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Cut.
And that's the latest. I'm honored to have been part of your thinking sphere today. Feel free to share, like, and subscribe on this platform, or follow and participate on any of my social media platforms. If this practice intrigues you as much as it does me, then join us in the Me 3 community, where we will work directly and you will curate a mindful method of thinking to define your own creative conscious. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Authenticated. I love that you're here.